You know what nobody tells you about boundaries? Nobody tells you that setting them will make you feel guilty. Nobody tells you that people will call you selfish. Nobody tells you that the people you love the most might be the ones who push back the hardest. And that's the part that gets people. Because we think that if we're good people, if we're loving people, if we're following God's call to love people, we shouldn't need boundaries. We should just say yes. We should just be available. We should just sacrifice ourselves for everyone else. But that's not how it works. Now, does it? That's not sustainable. And that's what we're talking about today. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Walking It Out. I am your girl, Latrice Clark Jordan, and I am so glad you're here. If you've been with me since the beginning, thank you for continuing to show up week after week. And if this is your first time listening, welcome. You just walked into a conversation about one of the most important topics we're going to cover today. Boundaries. And y'all, this is a big one because boundaries affect everything. Your marriage, your kids, your extended family, your friendships, your work, your peace, your sanity, your relationship with God. So, today, I want to get real with you. I want to share some of my own story about boundaries in my marriage, with my children, and with my extended family. I want to talk about why creating boundaries is not selfishness. It's about preserving the relationship. It's about protecting what matters most. Because here's the truth. Boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. Boundaries are fences that protect what's inside. And when you don't have boundaries, you end up exhausted, resentful, and burnt out. And that don't serve nobody. Now do it. So today, I want to talk about what healthy boundaries actually look like. I want to talk about how to set them without guilt. I want to talk about how to communicate them with love, and I also want to talk about what to do when people don't respect them. Because the peace you want, the healthy relationships you're praying for, the version of yourself that can show up fully for people you love, that's on the other side of boundaries. So grab your coffee, grab your tea, grab your water, whatever you're sipping on, and let's walk this out together. Okay. So let me start by being honest about something. Because I used to think that boundaries were mean. I used to think that if I really loved people, I would just be available all the time. I would say yes to everything. I would put everyone else's needs before my own. And for years, that's what I did. Especially as a wife and a mom. I thought being a good wife meant molding myself into whatever my husband needed me to be. I thought being a good mom meant showing up to every single thing my kids wanted. I thought by being a good sister, niece, cousin, daughter meant following the plan my family had laid out for my life. And y'all, I was exhausted. I was running on empty. I was irritable. I'm going to keep it a buck. I was resentful. And honestly, I was losing myself. And the thing is, I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was being selfless. I thought I was being a good Christian woman who put others first. But what I didn't realize was that I wasn't preserving my relationships. I was destroying them. Because when you don't have boundaries, you can't show up as your best self. You can't love people well when you're running on fumes. You can't be present when you're overwhelmed. And you can't give what you don't have. So let me tell you about the moment I realized something had to change. My husband and I had hit a wall. We weren't getting along. We were constantly at odds. And it got to the point where we were actually talking about splitting up our family. And y'all, that shook me to my core. Because I love my husband. We had built a life together. We have children together. And yet, we hadn't gotten to a place where we couldn't even be in the same room without tension. I mean, we had gotten to a place where we couldn't even be in the same room without tension. And as we sat there, in one of the hardest conversations we'd ever had, something became clear to me. We had been trying to force each other to be something we weren't. I had been trying to make him fit into this mold of who I thought he should be, and he had been doing the same to me. We weren't honoring each other's uniqueness. We weren't allowing each other to be our different selves. We were trying to make each other into carbon copies, and it was killing our marriage. And that's when I started learning about boundaries. Real boundaries. Not the kind that make you a bad person. The kind that make you a healthier person. The kind that actually allows you to love people better. Because here's what I've learned. Boundaries are not about keeping people out. Boundaries are about protecting your capacity to love people well. And sometimes boundaries are about creating space for people to be who they actually are, not who you think they should be. Think about it like this. If you have a glass of water and everybody keeps asking for a drink and you keep pouring and pouring and pouring, eventually the glass is empty. And when people come to you thirsty, you have nothing to give them. But if you protect that glass, if you refill it, if you make sure there's always water in it, then when people come to you thirsty, you actually have something to offer. That's what boundaries do. They protect your capacity. They preserve your energy. They allow you to show up fully instead of showing up empty. So let me talk about what this looked like practically in my life. Let me talk about the boundaries I had to create in my marriage, with my kids, and with my extended family. First, my marriage. Y'all, I love my husband. He's my best friend. He is my partner. He is the love of my life. But I almost lost him because I didn't understand boundaries. I thought that being a good wife meant trying to change him into what I thought he should be. I thought it meant expecting him to operate the way I operate, think the way I think, approach life the way I approach life. And what I realized in that season when we were talking about splitting up was that our differences weren't the problem. Our inability to honor those differences was the problem. So I had to learn to set a different kind of boundary. I had to learn to say, you're allowed to be who you are, and I'm allowed to be who I am. And we don't have to be the same to be good together. I had to stop trying to force him to be more like me. I had to stop criticizing the ways he was different. I had to stop expecting him to show up the way I would show up. And you know what happened? Our marriage got stronger, not weaker, stronger, because we started working together instead of against each other. We started letting our differences be our strength instead of our weaknesses. When I was weak in an area, he was strong. When he struggled, I could step in. And he started doing the same for me. He stopped trying to make me into something I wasn't. He started honoring the way God made me, even when it was different from him. And that boundary, that decision to honor each other's uniqueness instead of forcing conformity, that saved our marriage. Now let's talk about my kids, because this is where it gets tricky, right? Because we love our babies. We want to give them everything. We want to be there for them. We want to show up for them. But here's what I've learned. When I don't have boundaries with my kids, I'm not actually helping them. I'm hurting myself, and eventually I'm hurting them too. Because for years, I said yes to everything. Every game, every concert, every school event, every practice, every single thing they wanted me to show up for, I showed up. And on the surface, that sounds like good parenting, right? But here's what was happening behind the scenes. I was canceling lunch with my friends. I was putting off coffee dates. I was saying no to hang with my girls. I was sacrificing every ounce of my own social life, my own friendships, my own need for connection because my kids needed me to do something for them. And I told myself that's just what moms do. That's just the season I'm in. That's just what sacrifice looks like. But y'all, I was losing myself. I had no friendships outside my kids. I had no life outside their schedules. And I was starting to resent them for it, even though it was my choice. So I had to learn to set boundaries. I had to learn to say, I love you, and I'm not going to make this one. I had to learn to say, Dad's going to take you to this event because I have plans with my friends. I had to learn to say, this is important to you, and my time with my girls is important to me, and both can be true. And it was hard because they pushed back. They didn't understand why I wasn't always available anymore. They made me feel guilty for choosing myself sometimes. But you know what? They adjusted, and I got my life back. I got my friendships back. I got myself back. And honestly, they're better for it because now they're learning that healthier people have lives outside of their children. They're learning that it's okay to have needs. They're learning that taking care of yourself isn't selfish. And that's a gift I'm giving them that will serve them for the rest of their lives. Now, let's talk about extended family. Because y'all, this is where it gets really hard. This is where the guilt really creeps in. This is where people really start making you feel like you're doing something wrong. Because there's this expectation in families, especially in some family cultures, that there's a plan for your life. There's a way things are supposed to go. There's a path you're supposed to follow. And if you deviate from that path, you're being rebellious. You're being selfish. You're dishonoring the family. And for a long time, I let that control me. I let the weight of my family expectations dictate my decisions. I felt guilty when I didn't follow the plan they had for my life. I felt like I was letting them down. And on top of that, there was this pressure to show up for everything. Every family gathering, every event, every get-together. And if I said no, I felt like I had to give a dissertation on why I couldn't make it. I felt like I had to justify my absence. I felt like I had to over-explain my reasoning so they wouldn't think I didn't care. So, I had to learn to set boundaries there too. I had to learn that my life is my life, my plan, the plan God has for me might not be the plan my family envisioned, and that's okay. That doesn't make me a bad daughter or a bad sister or a bad cousin or a bad niece or a bad aunt. It makes me a person who's following my own calling. And I had to learn to say no to family gatherings without writing a paragraph about why. I had to learn to say, I'm not going to be able to make it, and leave it at that. No justification, no over-explaining, just a simple, clear no. And y'all, the pushback was real. There were comments about how I've changed. There were guilt trips about family coming first. There were suggestions that I thought I was too good for them now. And it really hurt. It really hurt because I love my family and I didn't want them to think I didn't care. But here's what I had to remember. Saying no to their plan for my life didn't mean I was rejecting them. It meant I was honoring the path God had for me. And saying no to an event didn't mean I didn't love them. It meant I was protecting my peace and my capacity. And over some time, some of them started to respect my boundaries. Not everyone, not right away, but eventually. Because I was consistent. I didn't waver. I didn't let the guilt make me backtrack. I didn't over-explain. I just held the line. So let me talk about why boundaries aren't selfish, because I think this is the lie that keeps people from setting them. We think if we say no, we're being selfish. We think that if we protect our time, we're being mean. We think that if we prioritize our needs, we're being a bad Christian. But here's the truth. It's going to blow your mind. You ready? Jesus had boundaries. He did. He went off by himself to pray. He said no to people. He didn't heal every single person. He didn't meet every single need. He protected his time with his Father. He protected his energy so he could fulfill his purpose. And if Jesus had boundaries, we can have boundaries too. Because boundaries aren't about being selfish. Boundaries are about being sustainable. They're about being able to love people well for the long haul, not just for us. When you don't have boundaries, you burn out. You become resentful. You start avoiding people. You start dreading interactions. You start showing up as a shell of yourself. But when you have boundaries, you can show up fully. You can be present. You can love people without losing yourself. So let me give you some practical steps for setting boundaries. Because it's one thing to know you need them. It's another thing to actually implement them. First, you have to identify where you need boundaries. And the way you do that is by paying attention to your emotions. Where do you feel resentful? Where do you feel overwhelmed? Where do you feel like you're being taken advantage of? Those are the places where you need boundaries. Second, you have to decide what your boundaries are. What are you willing to do? What are you not willing to do? What are your limits? And what are your non-negotiables? And this is important. Your boundaries don't have to make sense to anyone else. They just have to work for you. Third, you have to communicate your boundaries clearly. You can't expect people to respect boundaries they don't know about. You have to say it out loud. You have to be direct. You have to be kind, but firm. And here's a script you can use. I love you, and I'm not able to do that. Or, I appreciate you thinking of me, but I have to say no to this. Or maybe this one. I need some time for myself this weekend, so I won't be available. You don't have to over-explain. You don't have to justify. You don't have to make excuses. You can simply state your boundary and let it stand. You have to be consistent. Because if you set a boundary and then you let people cross it, they're going to keep crossing it. You have to hold the line. You have to follow through, even when it's uncomfortable, even when people push back. And you know what my favorite saying in my last point? You have to give yourself grace, because you're going to mess up. You're going to say yes when you meant to say no. You're going to let guilt make you waver, and that's okay. You're learning. You're growing. Just keep trying. So now let me talk about the people, what you do when people don't respect your boundaries. Because this is going to happen. Not everyone is going to like your boundaries. And not everyone is going to respect them. And here's what I want you to know. That's their problem, not yours. You're not responsible for other people's reactions to your boundary. You're only responsible for setting them and maintaining them. If someone gets upset because you said no, that's their emotion to manage. If someone calls you selfish because you're protecting your peace, that says more about them than it does about you. And if someone repeatedly crosses your boundaries after you've communicated them clearly, and you might need to create more then you might need to create more distance in that relationship. Because healthy relationships are built on mutual respect. And if someone can't respect your boundaries, that's not a healthy relationship. And I know that's hard, especially when it's family, especially when it's people you love. But sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to protect yourself. Because you can't control other people. You can only control yourself. And you have to decide that your peace, your health, your well-being is worth protecting, even if other people don't understand it. So let me talk about the results I've seen from setting my boundaries, because I want you to know that it's worth it. I want you to know that it gets better. My marriage is stronger. My husband and I aren't just surviving, we're thriving, because we're honoring each other's differences and letting those differences make us stronger. My relationship with my kids is healthier, and I have friendships again. I have a life outside of their schedules. I'm a better mom because I'm a whole person, not just their mom. My extended family relationships are more honest. I'm not pretending to be someone I'm not. I'm not following a script someone else wrote for my life, and I'm not drowning in guilt every time I say no. And most importantly, I feel like myself again. I'm not walking around exhausted and resentful. I'm not snapping at people I love. I'm not avoiding phone calls and dreading family events. I have energy. I have peace. I have joy because I'm not trying to be everything to everybody. I'm being who God called me to be in a sustainable way. And the relationships I have now are deeper. They're more authentic because I'm not pretending. I'm not saying yes when I mean no. I'm not building up resentment. I'm showing up as my whole self with my needs and my limits, and I'm loving people from that place. And that's what boundaries allow you to do. They allow you to love people well. They allow you to show up fully. They allow you to be present instead of pretending. So before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a challenge. I want you to think about where you need boundaries right now. Where are you feeling overwhelmed? Where are you feeling resentful? Where are you losing yourself? And I want you to take one step this week towards setting a boundary. Maybe that's saying no to something you would normally say yes to. Maybe that's communicating a need you've been afraid to express. Maybe that's protecting your time for something that fills you up. Maybe that's having a hard conversation with someone who's been crossing your boundaries. Whatever it is, take one step, because boundaries don't just happen. You have to create them. You have to communicate them, and you have to protect them. And I promise you, it's worth it. The peace you experience, the healthier relationships you'll build, the version of yourself you'll become, it's all on the other side of boundaries. You were not meant to be everything to everybody. You are meant to be yourself, fully and authentically, in healthy relationships with healthy boundaries. And when you protect that, when you honor that, you will experience a level of freedom that you never thought possible. So don't let guilt keep you trapped. Don't let people pleasing rob you of your peace. Don't let fear of what others think keep you from protecting yourself. Set the boundary, communicate it clearly, hold the line, and watch what God does. So before we wrap up today, I want to let you know what's coming up next week. We're going to talk about another topic that's really important: comparison. We're going to talk about how to stop measuring yourself against other people's journey. We're going to talk about how to stay in your own lane and run your own race, because y'all, comparison will steal your joy faster than anything else. And I cannot wait to dive into that with you. So thank you for being here today. Thank you so much. I appreciate you as always for being here listening. Thank you for walking this out with me. And remember, boundaries aren't selfish. They're necessary. So protect your peace, love people well, and give yourself permission to take care of you. I'll see y'all next week. And until next time, keep walking it out. I am your girl, Latrice Clark Jordan. You're not alone. And remember, have grace for yourself.